Yeah, we're live. So you have to watch what you say now. You're being watched. Right, so let's be off. Right number this time? Yep. So 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, folks, to the WP-Tonic Roundtable Show. We do this every Friday around 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Got a great panel, got a special guest, a little bit of a hero of mine, and we've got some great stories. I think it's going to be a great show. Like I say, we got Rob rolling with us. You know, if you don't know who Rob is, you've probably been under a rock, but I'm going to let him quickly introduce himself, and then the rest of the panel, then my major sponsor, and then we're going to be straight into the stories. So first, Rob, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the WP-Tonic tribe?
Hello, WP-Tonic folks. It's great to be back. I come here, every quarter, every 6 months or so and weigh in. So I'm a software developer turned startup entrepreneur. And after selling a couple SaaS companies, I now run MicroConf, which is it's really the longest running and most trusted community for bootstrap SaaS founders. And I also invest. So I'm invested in almost 80, mostly bootstrap companies.
I was listening to your podcast a couple of days ago. One of your, I think in the past couple of weeks, you were talking about your early days and how you were training as an electrical engineer and
electrician. Yep.
And the money was terrible.
Yep.
You did enjoy it.
It was construction. Yeah.
You were at your home, your parents, and you thought, I've got to do something. I've got to turn my life around. And you just went to the library before the internet was more established, and you just got stuck into some coding books, didn't you?
That's right. Yeah, right. I didn't have much money, so I just again, it was like 1998, right? 1999. So there was internet, but you couldn't learn to code on it. So I checked out books on Perl, PHP, and HTML because I had gone to school for computer engineering, but they taught me C and C++, and it was like, what am I going to do with this in the internet age? So that was the start.
I thought it was very inspiring, you sharing that. Thanks, Rob. Spencer, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, it's Spence from WPLaunchify.com.
And we've got a new regular panelist. I hope that she'll be able to join us as regularly as possible. She was a great laugh last week when she joined us. I thought I had to ask her to be a regular panelist. And that's Stephanie. Stephanie, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the tribe?
What's up, you guys? I'm so excited to be back. Thanks, Jonathan. I'm a little concerned about your head. I don't know what happened. There's an injury.
Oh, yeah. I walked, I do some boxing. I went to my boxing gym and somebody whacked me one, really knocked me out, literally. I'm still recovering. So I have no responsibility about whatever comes out of my mouth. I still think which is usual. But
compared to usual?
Yeah, because I'm not really totally with it. I think I've got a concussion to something. I really got semi-beaten up last night.
Is that what they're calling the pub these days? Boxing?
Yeah, that's what they call it. Yeah, and I've got my kind of co-host person that helps me with the roundtable show, Andrew Palmer, the only Andrew Palmer. Would you like to introduce him?
I thought. Hold on a second. I didn't even say my name, but I thought Elizabeth Holmes. I thought Elizabeth Holmes heard last week's episode and came after you. That's what I thought happened to your head.
All right. Let Stephanie introduce herself first, and I'll do it.
I'm Stephanie Hudson at Focus WP. You can find me at focuswp.co.
I apologise. I forgot you hadn't introduced yourself, Stephanie.
Too busy interrupting people. That's why.
Oh, there we go. That is my job. That's why they listen to this bloody show. Right, off you go, Andrew.
I'm Andrew Palmer. I'm just based in the UK, and I kind of invest, but not in the same level as Rob. But we try our best, don't we, Rob, to save people from themselves and try and get the plugins updated and all that kind of stuff. And you can find out all about me at thisisandrewpalmer.com.
That's great. And before we go into the main part of the show, folks, I just want to talk about my great major sponsor, and that's Castos. If you're looking to get into podcasting, and you should, for yourself or for your clients, you really need a quality platform, and that's what Castos offers. I've been using them now for over 6 months. They've got a great UX interface. They've got a great product. They've got one price structure. You're not penalized for being successful like other platforms, and their support and the people behind it are just great to work with. So if you're looking, like I say, to get into podcasting for yourself or for your clients, go and have a look at Castos. And if you decide to buy one of the packages, and you should, tell them that you heard about them on the WP-Tonic show. It helps Castos and it helps the show. Please support the show. So on to the first story, and WordPress 5.9 proposes scope major push towards, oh my God, full site editing. Plus these titles on the tavern aren't getting any better, are they? Spencer, what do you think of this one?
It's definitely a run-on sentence, but I'll have to check with John for the SEO capability. Well, the thing is with the Gutenberg in general, I don't know if this is what's covered, but in general, there's a real benefit to it that I've talked about. But the one thing that it's missing at the moment is you really have no way to interact with archive or single product pages. So you can edit the layout on a particular page or post type and whatever, and you can use that and resave it. But if you wanted to have that particular design appear on multiple post type pages, like for example, if you wanted to change the layout of your products, you don't have a capacity built in right now to have that happen like you do with many other page builders. You would literally have to build something into your template hierarchy in an old-fashioned way, or you'd have to use a theme. So there are a few mechanical things that need to be done. And the whole point of it is that, and I think that this is what they need to do, they're going after the idea that you can edit the entire site in one process, in one methodology, instead of what we have now is this birthday cake layering of you've got a theme with a page builder on top, and then you've got an editor that's in classic mode or it's in block mode, and then inside of there's a widget, and the widget or the block is in classic mode or regular mode, and there's a lot of layers. So I think ultimately for everyone's benefit, you have to remove a lot of the layers, but it's not as simple as just taking one of the legs out of the table and calling it a day. You have to prop it up in the meantime.
Yeah, so Rob, obviously you support for your funds WordPress enterprises, so you probably keep it on your radar to some extent what's going on in WordPress. So how do you think this is going? You know, I agree with Spencer. This seems to be what they're looking to achieve, the automatic crowd, doesn't it?
Yeah, I do. We're invested in Castos, the sponsor, totally coincidentally, and they're based on the WordPress plugin series.
A very wise investment. I think they're going to do very well.
That's turning out pretty good for us. Yeah, so I view it a little bit as an outsider, like the WordPress world. There are a lot of folks who come to MicroConf who I interact with, but it's not the thing. Like you, next week I'll see you in Portland. But it's not something that I think about and I'm embedded in day to day. I'm also a WordPress user and administer, a handful of websites that we run on WordPress. So to me, this feels like, Gutenberg obviously has been a large kerfuffle for the last 2 years, and it seems like it's caused a lot of, it's almost like the idea of Gutenberg and the builder, I think is great. I think the execution from an outsider perspective has lacked and has taken too long. And, to Spencer's point, it works on this and that, but not this page type. And it's like, it still feels like an early access to me is how I would think about it. And like, they're getting to the point where it's a V1, but it doesn't even, again, it feels like a V.8 maybe right now.
I want to just add something, because in relation to how we get from here to there, the page builders themselves, and I'll reference the two major ones, let me just say, first of all, Elementor, but Divi, I think, has also got a sign it. They recognize the predicament. You're going to need that help there, John. They recognize the predicament in that they are doing their own Elementor widgets to put blocks into an Elementor layout, and vice versa. There's blocks that put an Elementor widget into. So in other words, the two sides see it's like peanut butter and chocolate will soon be a Reese's peanut butter cup, and they want to help people get there. But in the meantime, you have to be a little bit knowledgeable to understand which bits go together and taste good.
Well, Stephanie have a... But I totally agree with you, Rob. Your observation here are exactly my own thoughts. I'm not against it. I think it was necessary. It's just going on forever, Stephanie, what do you reckon?
I agree. I mean, I think you guys all know what's going on. None of this is crazy or outside of the box thinking. I mean, this is what's happening. And to take something that millions and millions of people use and turn it into a completely different thing, like that's not an easy move to make. Like that is not simple. And you're going to deal with not only the tech issues of it, but also adoption issues and people freaking out about it and getting on podcasts and blah, blahing about it all day long.
Blah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, it's the messy middle, right? And where it's headed, I think will be better. I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to be better. WordPress probably stayed the same way for way too long anyway, but change is hard,
Yeah, true. Change is hard. What do you reckon, Andrew?
Well, I got a lot of experience with this because I happen to own 5 plugins that are, if you put them all together, they're CPT layout injector, Woo layout injector, because WooCommerce is one of the worst. You can't amend the checkout. You can't amend you just can't amend anything, so you've got to be a
you need that superb product, Andrew. Launch flows.
Exactly. Sean and I were first with our Woo layout injector for Divi, and Divi itself. Just to give you some context on this with Gutenberg, they're basically going full site editing. Yes, you can do custom posts types and you can do archives and all that kind of stuff. We, as Sean and I, we built these plugins and they were basically a theme builder. Divi took 4 years from launching to have a theme builder. Elementor took 2 years from launching to have a theme builder. So this stuff ain't easy, because people are confused about it. And now you've got theme builders in Divi, Elementor. I think actually Beaver Builder were one of the first to have full site editing.
Beaver,
it's
a separate thing. It's still,
it's a separate thing. I totally accept what you're saying, Andrew. But the only, no surprise. But my only observation is that we are dealing with an organisation that has had gobs of money, VC money invested in it, and it's also got almost 1,000 people working for it. I do honestly feel they could have got on with this a little bit more, quicker.
Maybe that's too many cooks. Maybe that's part of the issue. Too many cooks. With all these Beaver Builder, team of 5. Divi, when they first started, they were a team of 4. Now they're a team of over 100. So it kind of you have this. Too many cooks can spoil the broth, and also too many people, because it's a community effort. No matter what anybody says, that's what they describe it as. You've also got a lot of contributors that are doing this. Well, I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that. So how do you, because there's no hierarchy per se, how do you organize that?
I want to throw something in.
Jonathan, you can't run things by committee if you want to succeed. It's that simple.
I want to add to what Andrew's saying, because this is really where I see the politics mixing with the code, mixing with the reality. So one of the things that I'm constantly talking about is that I deal and communicate directly with a lot of the plugin authors that make the more popular stack of what you do. But when it comes to Gutenberg, one of the things I found, which is an interesting metaphor for how difficult this is, and it's in defense of the Gutenberg team, which you'd never hear from me normally. If, for example, you have something that is a form output, like again, take your email and submit it, and you want to put it on the same editor layout as something like a checkout form, HTML5 markup makes it illegal to nest a form inside of another form. It just rejects it. It breaks out one of the forms and that's it. So in the Gutenberg environment, one of the things I'm dealing with launch flows was, okay, wait a second. They've given me this amazing sandbox where I can mix pieces that weren't designed to go together. But what happens if I get a plugin, or I should say a block from some author that's a form that thinks it's living on its own, but it needs to go inside the same space as a form from another person or a checkout? I have to create all kinds of rules. But we already know that everybody can throw everything into the mix of this giant WordPress pot. And so I think that if they acted too impetuously, they would end up going down a path that would be very difficult to come back from, but yet might not work. And I think that's one of the reasons that in this case, I actually am in defense of the idea that they tippy-toe, because everyone who makes the stuff has to kind of agree what's the playing field we're dealing with, and then modify their stuff to cooperate with that. Kind of like football players or hockey players. You know what the rules of the game are. You don't just randomly bring in any kind of,
Yeah, right. Let's go on to, thanks for that panel. Let's go on to story 2. Apple delays plans to roll out CSAM detection in iOS 15 after privacy backlash. That's an understatement. I think one of the major forces that has forced them is Edward Snowden. I think when he's published in his newsletter a scathing rebut for Apple. What do you reckon about this, Rob? Because I think Apple have had to climb down to a certain degree. What do you reckon, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, privacy is obviously a huge issue today, and it continues to become that. I think since I became aware of it really when the Snowden, reveal happened. What was that? 5 years ago, 6 years ago? I mean, that was the moment where I was like, oh, the people who are like conspiracy, like my dad who says the government's watching us. Yeah, I was like, they're right. So. I mean, this is happening in ads with pixel tracking. This is happening in email with open, and click tracking is starting to go away. Several providers are removing it. So it's not a surprise this happened. I mean, the tough part is I think all of us would agree that, fighting child pornography and putting people behind bars who are affiliated with it is a good thing. But there's this, is it the slippery slope of, now we have software to analyze your photos on your phone for this. Now can we start analyzing for this other thing? We can say, we saw you doing drugs in a photo, and now we alert it's like, is it 1984? It's not that today, but I think that's the kind of the realization that people had, and Apple really, I don't know, they took it in the shorts on this one.
Yeah, before I throw it over to the panel, my thought about this, Rob, was that, I, like you said, I don't want to come across in any shape or form defending the purveyors of this awful material and they're, these type of people. But we do have a legal system where we can have special courts. We can have special courts for espionage. We could have a special court with specially trained judges. And I feel that the police and other national crime, like the FBI, they could go to special courts and provide. Then there could be a special system where the proof could be lesser than normal required for search warrants. The normal legal apparatus, these tech companies, and especially Apple, wanting to go outside the normal legal structures, that's my problem with it. Would you agree with that, Rob?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard the idea of having special courts for this. I would have to give that more thought. But that's the idea, is that, I mean, big tech, it has a lot of power. Facebook, Google, they have so much of our data. And Apple has traditionally been the one that says, look, we don't want your data. We sell devices, versus Facebook, who says, we want your data. We sell your data. That's how we make the money. Selling it, selling it through advertisers, right? And Google is the same way. So Apple has traditionally been the one that refused to unlock the iPhone, in the Boston Marathon bombing a few years ago, refused to give a back door. So this, I think, caught people off guard.
Yeah, I would normally throw it to another panelist, but I'm going to go back to Spencer because of his legal background before he became a WordPress entrepreneur. So, Spencer, would you, I don't know what your take on what I've just put to Rob, that we do have a legal structure that is experienced about how to deal with this. This is my major problem with all this, Spencer, that they want to kind of remove the normal court, judge, legal structures that we have put in place over hundreds of years to deal with these balances between privacy and the public good. What's your take on it, Spencer?
Well, I actually read the article by Edward Snowden, and one of the things that I took from it was that the underlying premise of why Apple might have tried this was their goal is end-to-end encryption so that they don't have to be bothered by the FBI or the CIA anymore. But in order to do that, they need to pre-filter out all of the content that could get encrypted, because otherwise that leaves them in a sort of pickle barrel by assisting these people that do this kind of stuff. If you follow my drift, in other words, they'll have the tool that allows these people to get away with behavior, but then they have to continually argue over subpoenas whether it's legitimate or not. Whereas if some really smart person maybe thought, what if we just stop anything from ever being in there? Then we know that we can tell the FBI and the CIA, sorry, it's not your business. Well, there's problems with all of that. I mean, this isn't going to ever be a case, having been in the legal system as a professional, there's never going to be special tribunals or courts. First of all, that smells and sounds and really doesn't look good for anybody. We've already seen that kind of stuff in many other military cases. And the second thing is that this is like a subjective thing now, because we're talking about AI. There's not like Bob and Susie looking at your pictures deciding whether you're being naughty. This is an AI. And we've seen far too many cases of people of color and otherwise being misidentified, mislabeled, misappropriated. So at the end of the day, I'm going to put this in the category like Elon Musk or one of the other people had said about AI. If you let it get too far, it's too late. Because once they start this will not go backwards. And it is not, in my mind, very ironic that this was happening all the time. This was always the plan. This was always where it was going to end up. Because how many military type things have we seen in the past that started for some altruistic purpose and then it was used for, the guy who designs the software to help drop aid packages to villages, and then the military uses it to target smart bombs and stuff.
Yeah, sure. So, Stephanie, I totally agree with what Spencer said. We seem to be at a crossroads. Encryption, Bitcoin, how you put your credit card over the internet, the ability not to break this, which gives total privacy against the public good, because unfortunately other people are going to use this to hide these terrible acts, plus terrorists. There seems to be we've got two contradictory requirements here. What's your take on it, Stephanie?
I don't know. This stuff gets me kind of stressed out. I tend to sort of head in the sand about it a little bit, mostly because there's nothing I can do about it anyway. But everybody always, like, even in our marketing circles, right? We have people that are freaking out about marketing, about tracking and blocking ads and all that stuff, while at the same time we're telling our clients to install pixels on their sites and target all their, we want both. We want our cake and we want to eat it too. We want all the benefits of this stuff and none of the bad things. Yeah. And, like everybody's been saying, it's not in the control of only the good guys. It's, it gets beyond that. And all of these things, like we say, like, oh, we've got all these amazing AI photo images. We can add resolution to photos. We can modify things. We can make photos of our old family members. Have you seen this website where you can upload old photos of your family members and you can upload audio and it will make them move and talk? Like, it'll make them move and do things just like that.
That's great. Like you can replace me there.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So you can, now Andrew's crossing himself. But yeah, so I mean, there's all these amazing, wonderful things that technology brings, and it always comes with a price. I mean, when there wasn't that many people getting run over by horses and buggies, you had cars and people. There's accidents and people die from them more than like so many other things. It's like there's so many different things with technology. It always comes at a price, and sometimes I think using something like child molestation, child abuse is a bit of a dirty tactic. Is that really what this is all about? I mean, because who's gonna argue with trying to fight child abuse? Like, if you go to prison as a child abuser, you're gonna get beat to death by criminals. Like, even the criminals know that this is bad, right? So this could be it's a bit of a tactic, but I don't know. I mean, is it worth it? Right? Is it worth the handoff?
That's very observant of you, Stephanie, because it's a bit because tomorrow will be the anniversary of 9/11, So, 9/11, some people, and I would be one of them, would say that 9/11 was an excuse for the Patriot Act, which is a deplorable, to me, is an act that's totally against the American spirit about the founding principles of this country. It's a terrible piece of legislation, but which would have never gotten through in normal times. But because of 9/11, it was just rammed through the legislation, and it's still on the books. It should be, in my opinion, removed tomorrow. It's totally unacceptable, but that's my opinion. So, Andrew,
this is basically, remember when the motor car was first put out? And
no, do you?
Yeah, I'm that old. No, but I was
Sick
educated
burn.
in England, so I remember a lot.
John does.
So no, there was a guy with a red flag that was walking in front of the car. Right? Warning, warning. So this is what this is. This is honestly, look it up. It's history. I know
Is that your first job, Andrew?
I know you guys don't get taught much history, but there you go. There's so you basically you walk in. We're walking in front of technology, waving a red flag, warning people about our dystopian future that's coming up. Right? Because the danger with this, and again, not condoning what bad people do, but the danger with this, as with everything, is that good people will get tied up with this. And I'll give you a live example. 20 years ago, a Boots, I think it was a Boots processing, I think, processed some pictures with babies in the bath, right? This guy's babies in the bath. He got a visit from the police, right? So you don't want that. It's a babies in a bath. What's that? It's his kids. You've got kids going to hospital with a broken arm. The first thing they do is look at the parents and say, how did this happen? We fell out of a tree. He's a kid, and you've got all this. So this is dangerous for us as normal thinking, hopefully fairly normal thinking, Jonathan, human beings that have a sense of right, a sense of morals. But what do? We have to do something about these criminals that are exploiting people. Still trafficking going on of all sorts of things. So
I do honestly feel
we need our laws to catch up with the electronic age. We're still going on the 1896 Telecommunications Act in the UK. We have to do some kind of catch up. I think this is too fast, too much, too soon. Really, we have to do it in a gentle way and make sure that we protect the normal population. That's my view.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that.
You should understand too that everybody probably can see this. Laws are very quick to be made. They never ever get removed.
And they should. Every time you make a new law, you should at least.
But I'm saying because the reason the way legislation in the United States works at the state and federal level is they're politically motivated, very exceptional to the geography or the time or the needs of the politician. They get put on the books. They get forgotten. That's why many states in particular have these vintage laws. Much like by the way, ironically, Britain has a few of them too. Where I read if you walk around with a dangerous looking fish in your hand or something, it's a crime. There was a guy who did a video about.
Yeah,
I mean that should be a crime.
I think that was well observed by you, Spencer. Because let's look at the Espionage Act, which was used to threaten Edward Snowden. This is why he's spending his life in Moscow of all places. Yeah. Because the
Patriot Act has about 10,000 pork things in there, including protection for vaccine makers, which has nothing to do with today's thing. But just think about it. It's like they put full blanket liability in there for vaccine makers in the Patriot Act, along with a bunch of other stuff. It'll never get removed, ever.
Well, I wouldn't agree with you there. I think if there's a will, there's a way. But
there's nobody who has the political will, because what would be the benefit of removing it? The president now is doing some controversial stuff, and maybe because of his standing or his age or his whateverness, he's doing stuff that other politicians who had something in the future to worry about would never do. You have to be in the twilight of your political years in order to even begin to think about what would benefit me for my job and my career.
When Rob has gone and we're in bonus content, I will be giving
talking about Rob.
Yeah,
behind
right,
my back. Sorry, I can't make the bonus content.
Right. Oh, he's busy. Well, he's got a conference to organise for next week. I'm very happy that you had the time to join us, Rob. I do know you're rather busy. So we're going to go for our break, and we'll be back, and we've got some other great stories. We'll be back in a few moments. We're coming back. Before I go into the next story, you just heard our advert for Launch Flows. I just want to point out, if you go to WP-Tonic newsletter and sign up for our great newsletter, which Andrew helps me with, plus I'll be adding a video with my own thoughts about this week and the bonus content. So if you want to see me being truly outrageous, you need to sign. You need, yeah, he's got no control nor Spencer. I'll be hitting it hard, folks. So you need to sign up for the newsletter and be aghast at my remarks. And you know, Tribe, I can rant. I can really rant, Tribe.
There's a sub-headline, John Denwood, unhinged.
That's it, unleashed by Spencer Andrew.
Moving on.
But get back to it. The other reason which you want to go to the newsletter page is that Launch Flows, and thank you so much, Spencer, have offered a special deal on their lifetime plug-in deal. You get almost 30% off the lifetime deal, and it's a pretty good deal anyway.
Apparently people have figured out to use it on the one annual too. I didn't realize I was that generous, but apparently people have been using the coupon on the $50 plugin.
Terrible people. But you need to go, and also Costo is offering 6-month 50% reduction, which you can find the details on the newsletter page. They're two great offers. So on to story 3. I'm going to butcher the name. Timley responds to feedback, updates, cookies, consent banner limits. This is a fascinating story. Do you know about this one, Stephanie? Do you want to start off with this?
No, I do not.
All right, let's Spencer do it again. You naughty girl. You haven't been reading the stories.
Listen, I almost couldn't even make it today. And Jonathan was like, please come. And I said, okay, as long as you promise to not ask me first.
We need a lady. The other two are Spencer, what did you think of this?
This is once upon a time, there was a little plugin that did very well as a free plugin, and it had thousands of happy users. Then one day, some genius decided to come in and change the whole plugin and charge for it without notifying anybody. The problem is, this has happened so many times, it's cliche at this point. Like, has anybody not figured out that the users who are going to buy your product are not the ones who've been using it for free in the repository all this time? Because if they need a book, there's one written by one of the commenters, and I'm not going to name his name, but he's written the headline of his new book about why this has been seen a million times again. So scroll down to the comments, and he's got a 4-letter name, and he actually explains very well why this is ridiculous at this point, because you can't give it away for free and then charge for it later. And if you want, you're welcome to search my name over in TechCrunch back around 2005 or 6 or so, because I was a guy from Chicago who came into the world of freemium in the SaaS world of Silicon Valley, where they were giving it away for free. And I said, in Chicago, if you open up a hot dog stand and you give away your hot dogs for free, you know what you'd be? You'd be bankrupt. So in WordPress, it's ridiculous that these people think this is the way to do it. And sadly, they could have done it better, because if you had a plugin like this, what you can do is invite these people into the paid product as a reward for having been your early adopters. Give it to them for free or something for 6 months or a year. Make them into raving fans. This is right out of the Rob Walling playbook, by the way. But the idea is you take somebody who's your friend, who's your potential supporter and fan, and you give them an incentive to be your fan. You don't stick your thumb in their eye by just changing what they've been relying on for free as if they're stupid. So,
right, Rob. Can I let
Rob
in
first?
Rob. Because Rob, I think they need to listen to your podcast. These people, I think they lost the plot a little bit, didn't they?
Here's the bit. There were two mistakes here. The first one is just if you're going to be a software entrepreneur, if you're going to release a product, don't have unlimited free tiers. Just don't make it free unless you never plan to sell it. And guess what? You plan to sell it. You will at some point, want to or need to. If you create something of value, at some point you're like, wait, I can get $100,000, I can get $1 million, I can get $3 million for this thing. Everything changes once you've built something worth it. So make a good decision from the start. And yes, if it had a free plan from the start, that a free tier that went up to 10,000 or 100,000 or 500,000, but then there was just some tier that was like, hey, here's your enterprise tier and you pay $100 a month, 1,000, just something, even if no one paid you any money, at least there would be some expectation. So that was the first major mistake. And the second major mistake is what Spencer talked about. If you acquire a plugin, I don't know that I would go so far as to grandfather everyone into a free tier personally, but you have to do it really gently. You have to, if you're going to make changes and not grandfather folks, you need to do it over the course of 3, 6, 12 months. You need to announce it. You need to let them know again. You know what I mean? You have to handle these things with kid gloves and assume people are going to get upset, especially with this many people using it.
Does nobody remember WooCommerce lifetime deal? I bought WooCommerce lifetime deal, right?
Well,
they were one of the first people to do this, right? Not even even before they sold, I think. But the point is that this happens. You know, shit happens when you develop a plugin, it becomes wildly popular, and like Rob says, have your free tier. This is what you get for you. If we're releasing a plugin on Monday, it's a free tier. This is what you get. If you want to have more, pay us some money, please. You know, that's the key. But when I took over Sean's 23 plugins, there wasn't a free tier. There was never a free tier. These plugins were always commercial, but you used to pay $10 for a lifetime, right? Now you pay $10 every year because of the support burden and stuff like that. So what I did was say, do you know what? Anybody that paid $10 for this when it wasn't Visual Builder capable for Divi, you can have it if you ask for it. I'm not going to go out and chase you, but if you've got a problem, yeah, we'll give you the free version. We'll give you the updated version forever. It's not a problem because there's, I don't know, 60,000 users and some people have deprecated down to other or using other stuff. But what Rob says is absolutely spot on. I'm a freemium guy. I don't understand developers giving stuff away for free forever because the support burden is massive. You know, we've got a free plugin on the WordPress repository. There's 50,000 people. It's so easy to use. We get one support thing in about a year. You know, it's ridiculous. But if you've got a complex plugin, why give it away for free? You can't feed your kids on free. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
So,
hey, Steph,
that feature bump is really the secret that would have solved the best. Because if they just said we're feature locking out everybody who's gotten us from A to here to Z, we want to reward you. You can have it forever, and it's just like it was. But we're not going to be adding new features to it. We'll make sure it's not broken, but that's it. And then now here's this bonus, like version 2 that you can move to. A lot of people who do video editing software, like I use Telestream's ScreenFlow, they keep upgrading to a different model. And at first I was annoyed, but then I realized, you know what, that makes sense because then they can sort of safely abandon or jettison all of the people who'll never upgrade anyway, and then limit their exposure. Which is the model that works too.
All right, I want to go on to Steph.
I just want to say one quick thing. I'm thinking about this, and I'm like, I've never even heard of Termly. Like, did you guys use this before?
It's only if you're in Europe because it's for GDPR and nobody in America.
It's GDPR compatible. So yeah, this monkey.
But still, like, okay, so is this maybe a case of no press is bad press either? Like, I wonder if people are going to come now and say like, oh, this is kind of worth paying for.
Right. Yeah.
You know, we're talking about it and I never even heard of them before.
Yeah. I want to go on to story 4 and I want Stephanie to remark about it first. Yeah, sorry. The Texas abortion ban could force tech to snitch on users. So, Stephanie, as our token woman, but there were supposed to be 2 others. Be there. Sorry, Steph. What's your take? What's your take on this to start off with?
Well,
Stephanie?
Are we talking again? I mean, so this article is about tech snitching on users. So this comes back to what we talked about 2 stories ago, right? Where's the line? Where do things, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to get into like a political battle on this show or any show. I'm not going to get into all that stuff on like whether or not people have the right
It's
to
right
do
or
this or
wrong,
that, whatever, like right or wrong. But if we want to talk about the tech, then that's that same 1984 dystopia. Does it make a better future, or does it turn us into the robots are taking over? You know, like it just comes back to all of this. Are we going to allow tech to have this much power or not?
Yeah. So, Rob, Texas has tried to make itself out as, if you're fed up with California, come to Texas. We're the new hub of technology. We're the place, the buzz place to come to. Forget California. Come here. Low taxation, and then they produce this, in my opinion, the most reprehensible pile of shit ever seen in history. How do you think this is going to affect Texas' positioning as this place that if you're in the tech sector, you should move to Texas?
Yeah, since so many people in technology are from the coast and tend to be, I'd say, more left-leaning, I don't know. It could have an impact. I think it depends on the individuals. I also think this law is not going to last. As of this morning, the U.S. Department of Justice is suing the state of Texas. That's like it was obviously happened after this article was written. But whatever your politics or opinion on pro-life, pro-choice, the law is poorly written. It is way too far-reaching, and that's what this new this article is talking about. Is it could force tech to snitch on users. It could force Uber. In the way it's written, it's like if an Uber driver drives someone to a clinic and then they get an abortion, then they've aided and abetted. I mean, it's insane. So the law is so poorly constructed that it can't stand on the books. Like if this happens, that other states do it, what other cities can do it. We can't have laws like this. We just can't.
I got an email from Uber saying, or was one of them, one of the rideshare ones. I mean, I don't live in Texas even, but it was like, hey, just a heads up, like we'll still take you anywhere you need to go. But that part's nuts. Now, if somebody has a driverless car and they're programming it in, then okay, that's on you. It's on you if you go in the car and tell your driver, or if you drive yourself there. Like,
yeah, I gotta say, Rob,
the driver's fault. Jeez.
Yeah,
the issue is data protection. Everybody's missing this point. Right. I'm not allowed to share your email address without your permission, right? So how come a stranger can share my personal details?
Yeah,
it's just impossible. It's against the law anyway.
Yeah. What I was going to put to Robert, Andrew, was they've got this kind of bounty, haven't they, Rob? They brought out this bounty for...
That's what it is.
They put
you have what other law? What other law do we know of that basically... If I have no connection to someone, I can sue them for and get this damage. It's crazy. I mean, I heard someone on a podcast I listened to say they're laughing because they almost are wondering if the people who put this law together are like closet liberals because it's going to backfire so badly on them the way it is written, and it was kind of a ha-ha moment.
Right, Spencer, because you're legal, but I don't know what they're drinking in Texas in the legislature. I don't know what they're sipping, but my God, Spencer, you're muted, Spencer. You're muted.
Let's start with the basics because this is one time where I have to call it what it is. Okay. The Republican Party has come to the full clarification that they only have two issues they can ever talk about: guns or abortion. They have nothing else meaningful that helps anybody. Even their constituents who are wealthy are not impressed by anything other than guns and abortion. So the supremacy clause of the United States, which was not ignored, it was just looked the other way at the moment, says that you cannot make any state law that supersedes a federal law. The law federally in the United States is that abortion is legal. Now, these yahoos who are looking for nothing more than attention for their political careers by being as controversial as possible wrote a law that, as Rob and you, the rest of you guys pointed out, cannot stand because there's no nexus. There's no basis for anybody to be a plaintiff in a case when they have no direct proximate cause damages.
Yeah.
You can't put bounties out for the public. But what's interesting is there's 7 or 10 other states, including Missouri yesterday, who passed a law using the same model, because that's how Republicans, think. Their law says that anybody can have a bounty on any police or law enforcement officers who interfere by cooperating with the federal authorities in a gun-related case. So the local Republican sheriffs have lost their shit because they're working with the FBI and all the other federal agencies to try to get drug dealers and criminals off the streets. And now they're subject to a $50,000 personal bounty by anybody who wants to bring a case. I can keep going, but I'm not, because you can already see how absurd this is. And remember we talked a minute ago how I said it's easy to make laws and it's hard to take them out? Right? This is the perfect example. Politicians can make laws for any reason, anytime, as long as the political strength is behind them to get it passed. And then they sit around until some test case comes along that demonstrate publicly how absurd they are. In this case, I do think that's going to happen sooner than later. But the audacity in the world we live in, where there's so many more important things to focus on, that guns and abortion are being used as the centerpiece in a state like Texas, where there's the island of Austin, where all the California people with money are moving to make it an amazing tech center, and surrounding it is like 18th century mindset. Or better yet, if you took a picture of Governor Abbott and his cronies and you put, Taliban style headdresses on them, there's no difference between them and the way the Taliban acts. So I challenge anybody politically to claim that the people in the Taliban are acting irrationally when the people in Texas in government are, because there's just no way to rationalize that. It's equally crazy the way that these people behave.
Yeah, just to finish off, Rob, I just want to finish. The only thing, Rob, is because obviously I'm a hybrid, I'm English and also I'm American. Now, I've been living in America for 15 years, Rob, and I'm a dual national now, Rob. But I find this whole thing bizarre, the English side of me, because, England's got its problems, but we have learned that there's certain things that are private that should be discussed between you and your doctor. And there's other things that, that are public. I really can't even follow the discussion. It's the English side of me. I just find the whole thing bizarre. Am I right to feel the whole thing is a bit bizarre?
I mean, I think it depends on perspective, right? That's then arguing the right and wrong of this. And I don't, Andrew, it sounded like you were going to weigh in in the UK.
Well, no,
does the UK not feel that way?
We have literally just a month and a half ago, the government were about to sell our National Health Service data, personal data. So when he said it's like talking to a doctor who's private, it wasn't. So and guess who we were going to sell them to? An American healthcare company. So we're suffering from your guys' lack of state control, really, because the federal government seems to be almost powerless to separate church from state, right, or religious views from state. As an atheist, I find that really difficult because I don't understand why there is even a religious view. But the point is that you have to have a moral standing in everything that you do, right? That's just stat. What Texas are doing is basically authorizing the subjugation of women. There's no other way to put it. And that's my personal view, right? I'm not an American citizen. I'm a UK citizen. And if we're not careful, the Republican states of America will start to literally look like all the memes have said, like The Handmaid's Tale. And if you've ever read the book and watched the TV series, it's so scary that we are definitely, we're not conspiracy theorists. I'm definitely not a conspiracy theorist, but I tell you what, you guys are heading towards a dystopia that is very disturbing of state control over individual choices. And you wait until it starts hitting men. And that's when you'll see a civil war. Because
I'm a mixture of left-wing tendencies and right-wing attitudes. Like most
under his eye, Andrew.
But I, whatever Kulak this lot are taking, God knows what. My
crazy.
God, they're bonkers. I mean, truly bonkers.
When they misuse it for everything under the sun, it starts with guns and abortion, but now you said it's going into police thing. When they're using it for like bowling alleys or pizza joints and everything else, that's when the ludicrousy makes it, they burned it out. And then they'll move on from it as if they never said it in the first place. Oh, we didn't really mean that we're,
like we've been saying, always get a vaccination.
I need to get things because Rob needs to bail out quickly. So I need to get on with things, panel. So before we go to our recommendations of the week, I just want to mention the free workshop I'm doing with Spencer soon after this round table show at 10:30 Pacific Standard Time. If you're listening to this live, please join us. You'll be able to watch it on the Facebook group page for the WP-Tonic tribe, and we'll be discussing marketing automation, won't we, Spencer? Let's go on.
About Gutenberg.
Yes.
Sales funnels.
Yes, great. And we'll be doing it next month as well on the second Friday. I don't know, the Pacific date escapes me, but it will be on the group page, Facebook page. So panel recommendation, obviously mine is MicroConf. I'm going to Portland next week. I'm doing a little trip up to the Socialist Republic of Portland to attend Rob's conference. I'm really pumped up. It's the first time I've left my home office in 2 years. I sleep here, so I'm escaping. We're going to meet Rob in person, hopefully, and it just should be fun. I think tickets are tickets still available, Rob?
There's still a few. Yep, almost sold out, but there's a couple. And they're like $130. They're pretty cheap. It's just a one-day event.
Yeah, it's a one-day event, very reasonably priced. Please join us. That's on the Wednesday, isn't it? Next week, the 15th. So it'll be in the show notes. Please join us there. Support Rob, and he's been very supportive to the WordPress community and the startup community in general. Please join us. So, Spencer, what's your recommendation?
I found what I'm going to call almost perfect out-of-the-box plugin called Site Demo Creator. I got to get in touch with the author to see if he's going to support sound. What this does is the plugin for WordPress. You put it in your site. If you want to demonstrate something on your site and you do screen recordings like I do frequently, it gives you a mobile mock-up or a desktop mock-up where you can either record directly on your computer with one button with no other stuff, or you can use your normal screen recorder, which I have to do currently because let's say I want the sound with it. But it allows you to sort of like show it in the context of like a focused browser, especially with the mobile. So it's super cool when you want to demonstrate things to people that would normally take extra software. For example, like if you wanted to show an iPhone or something like that, you'd have to use another piece of software that emulates it on your computer. This just does it. It's free. It does exactly what it says. It didn't crash. He's not selling it. I don't think he's going to upsell me. And I was really amazed at how unique the solution was, because it was a pain that I had, but I hadn't thought about until the plugin came along. And it's like, that is a problem that I have, and this solves it perfectly. So,
Spencer, call Loom and tell them to buy it.
Right.
That would be.
I use Loom, by the way, but I will tell you, just for those doing, there's lots of ways to record screen, and I use Loom for the convenience, but I will tell you that Loom has one annoying feature about it, that it records the overlay of me permanently onto the one stream, versus if I record separately, I can turn it on and off. So I'm often in my videos having to move myself around the screen, which is very distracting to a lot of people.
Yes, I do that. I do it naturally, though. Rob, have you got a representation? And please place it into chat of this. And my assistant, my Andrew Palmer, will put it into Slack. So Rob, sorry, Rob.
I need an Andrew Palmer.
Yes, I'm getting very used. We all need Andrew Palmer.
Let's face it, Andrew puts the ass in assistant, though, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's my Jeeves there. Rob, Rob, have you got a feed that you want to push to the tribe?
I do. It is called reallygoodemails.com. If you know what a swipe file is, it's where you see good designs or you see good marketing copy or you see good design patterns or whatever, and you save them in your email somewhere, you save them in a Dropbox. Really Good Emails is this almost infinite scroll of good email designs and visual effects and all that kind of stuff. So it ranges from e-commerce, they're categorized. It's just an incredible free resource that I think most people haven't heard about.
Just before I go on,
Cool.
it's strange how some technologies die, but then it's strange how some technologies come back again. For the time email, horrible, newsletters. Blah. Now they seem to be back into vogue again, Rob, don't they? It's funny how things
That's how it
work
goes.
out.
The next generation comes and we realize, email, I'd rather have one email subscriber than like 500 Facebook followers.
I think the swipe file concept that this uses, which Rob referenced, swipe file concept is something that is so incredibly powerful, whether it be for layouts or patterns or emails or marketing copy. And it's like, that was the thing we all did always. And then we forgot about it. And now it's like everything is drag and drop back to that.
Yeah.
We forgot about it because we started saving a million things that we never went to look at,
there we
and they
go.
all got piled up and forgot where they all were.
Right, Stephanie, have you got a recommendation for the tribe?
I do. I've been using this app called Vectera. It's nothing like wild and crazy that you haven't used before, but I've been using it instead of Zoom for my one-on-ones with my assistant, who I've been training over the past couple months. We sort of co-work with it. I've just been using the free version, but even with the free version, it integrates with Google Calendar to schedule, just like Zoom does. And the thing I love about it is that when you're in a meeting, like when you're on Zoom, if you want to share the screen, if somebody else wants to share, you have to stop and they start. You can both share and then you can just jump back and forth to whichever one of the shares you want to look at. There's also a whiteboard that is shared and you can share files right through it and things like that. It's just dead simple. And for the free account, you can set up like 3, I think, custom links. So I have them for, her name and my company name and something else. And so it's great for the one-on-ones. And I will probably end up upgrading for more people.
Okay, put that into Slack so Jeeves can help me out on it. It sounds really so. And the Andrew, the Andrew Palmer. What's your recommendation to the tribe?
Zip Message. Anybody heard of Brian Cassell?
Yep.
Genius, right? He did the restaurant engine years ago. First, multi-site and everything, and restaurant owners could build their website for $54 a month. It was great. And he's come up with Zip Message, and it's asynchronous messaging.
Yeah.
So
I've heard of this.
how good is that for you guys? Because you're dealing with somebody in the UK. You're Jonathan, you're on PST. It's what is it? It's 10 o'clock in the morning there now, or something. It's 5:30 now. You can send me a message at 11 o'clock your time. I'll get it. I can reply to it. The nice thing about it is that it can be a video, a full-on video. It can be screen share. It can be, and you just share a link. But also, the great thing about it, why Brian is so bloody clever, it annoys me how clever he is, right? Because he's got
terrible to get people like Rob.
But
Rob
the
as well.
It's terrible. Is that he's got you have time to answer. So if you're the supplier and the customer asks you an awkward question, you're not on Zoom going, I'll get back to you on that one. You've got time to fix the issue in your head, how you're going to explain it to them and answer the message back. So asynchronous messaging, I think, yes, there's Loom, yes, there's other stuff like that, but Zip Message, amazing.
Right.
And yeah, it's premium,
Well, let's wrap it up. Do you need to go now, Rob, or can you just do another couple minutes?
I need to rust off. I actually have we're interviewing for our 4th batch of startups, and my call started about 30 seconds ago.
Get on it.
Thank you
Get
so
on
much,
it,
Rob. I'll see you
Nice to meet you,
later.
Rob. Bye.
Nice to meet you guys. Nice to see you.
See ya.
Bye.
See ya.
Right, so let's wrap up the show. We're going to continue the discussion. Stephanie might be leaving us because she might be doing other things. I'll leave that to Stephanie's discretion. We're going to be wrapping up the podcast part of the show, folks, but we're going to continue the discussion, which you'll be able to see on the WP-Tonic group page, the mastermind group page. So if you want to see the real juicy discussion, go there. But Spencer and Andrew have put me under surveillance and said I still got to modify my comments, but it'll be a little bit juicy.
I got my finger on the show turn off button.
Right, he's going to switch me off or Andrew is. He's got a mute button now to shut me up. So we'll be going on there. So please join us for the bonus content and also sign up for our newsletter. I'm going to let the panel tell you how you can find out more about them. So Spencer, if people want for the podcast, for the benefit of the podcasters, what's the best way to find out more about you, Spencer?
They can go to WPLaunchify.com and discover their stack of WordPress plugins, or they can come to launchflows.com and check out what we're doing with WordPress and sales funnels with WooCommerce.
And thank you for your continued support for your sponsorship of the show. It's much appreciated, Spencer. Andrew, what is the best way for people to find out more about your thoughts and inspiration, Andrew?
Well, you can find me in the Focus WP Facebook group. You can find me in the Divi Theme Users Facebook group and Grid Pain Community Facebook group.
Well, will we find you in the WP-Tonic Mastermind
Facebook group? I'm just because I got nothing else to do, right, other than stalk these Facebook groups. But you can find, I mean, basically, if you want to know.
Well, you also go golfing. You also do go
I can't. I've hurt my leg.
He's injured himself, Stephanie. He's injured himself.
At the minute, I hurt my leg yesterday really badly, so I'm on crutches for the next 2 weeks. It's crazy, right?
But anyway, man, he's gonna be so grumpy for the next 2 weeks.
I am. I cannot even begin to tell you how grumpy. I can't even stand
up. We had a Zoom before this, Stephanie, and he was grumpy to me. Stephanie, have you got?
Oi, I haven't finished.
Oh yeah, it's Andrew. Sorry, yeah, cool. Sorry, I lost my plot again. It's old age, Andrew. I'm losing it.
Shush now. This is AndrewPalmer.com is where you can find me, and at Arnie Palmer on Twitter. Thank you.
Right. So, Stephanie, how can people find out more about you and your thoughts?
You can come to focuswp.co, or you can more than likely find me over in my Facebook group, Focus on Your Biz, B-I-Z.
That's great. And please join us for the bonus content, which starts in the next minute. You'll find that bonus and the real tribe on the WP-Tonic Mastermind Facebook group. Please join us there, and also sign up for the newsletter where you'll see a bit of a rant from me, which Andrew will just love. So we'll see you next week, folks. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
So on to story 5, if I can go back up. So dark patterns of network solutions. What did you think of this one, Spencer?
It's kind of disturbing to me, not because it's surprising, but because they think we're stupid. And maybe they have proven that we're stupid, or that people are stupid. The dark pattern basically is that you put a series of obstacle course obstacles in the way of people when they're trying to do something simple, so that they end up accidentally signing up for things that they didn't intend. So here he's describing how if you wanted to, let's say, get a name that somebody else owns, a domain name, you can use a service that allows you to try to be the one who can acquire it. But the problem is the acquisition itself is one thing. The transfer is handled by Network Solutions, who in a darker version of GoDaddy has literally made it for a normal person impossible not to fall into the trap of paying $200 a year for stuff just to get a $18 to $30 a year domain name. It reeks of desperation to me. It reminds me of the cable industry. It reminds me of the text messaging and the beeper industry before they died. I did notice the domain names went up this year, even for other hosting services, but not unreasonably. I always thought it was kind of low to be like $10 a year for a domain name, but nevertheless, this is just one of those things that I'm surprised that I would be surprised if there wasn't a backlash. But right now, for example, GoDaddy is not as dark, but it's equally.
Oh God! You had to swear on the show, for God's sake.
Listen, I've got some very good friends that work for GoDaddy. They're
Yeah, they're
very
nice,
lovely
but
people.
don't get
Very
me
lovely
wrong. But the
people.
company it was founded by a fucking
Well, yeah,
elephant
but
killer.
they're changing. People
Yeah.
give people a chance to change. They'll change.
Yeah, but he's still on the board of the
As
company.
soon as he gets off the
Andrew.
board, I'll go with you. Yeah.
I mean, I remember Bob Parsons' days when he owned it, and it was a riot.
Well, that's the geezer I'm talking about.
But when he left, somebody came in and took it
He
from
hasn't
like.
left though. He's still on the board. That's
Well, maybe he's on the board, but the fact is he's not doing this. The stuff that's being done are the same decisions by middle managers that run like the radio industry and other things that you tune into a radio station and they have for a half-hour show, they have 47 commercials. You know what I mean? It's like 5 seconds of talk and all commercials. It's like they insult your intelligence by thinking you're going to stick around for it.
I'll tell you something, Spencer. That geezer, he's on YouTube where he shoots a mother elephant that's got 2 baby elephants.
That was a lot. I don't know if he still does it. I think he learned his lesson.
He just shoots this female elephant and he's grinning to camera as he kills this poor animal. And you see the baby elephants, you know. And they're highly,
I think he got smacked pretty hard for that.
They are highly intelligent group animals with social art, and it's the most sickening piece of crap.
Yeah, but you got to stop now because here's the thing. A, it's not about Bob Parsons. We're not talking about him.
Right.
B, he did it 10 years ago. C, he got the shit kicked out of him in the public for it. And D, we talked about like, we're not going to talk about public figures, rich public figures in this bonus thing, or I'm not sticking around because like, I'm not going to do that. Just, it's a waste of time. The company's behavior is relevant. Network Solutions or GoDaddy are definitely doing dark pattern kind of stuff. And it's sad because they would do so much better, in my opinion, if they didn't play games. But they said, here's the benefit of something really useful to you. Take it or leave it, and then you get on with your stuff.
Well, like you have a whole company that does this, right? Launch flows. Like, let's do upsells. Let's do like suggestions and things like that. But none of it, you know, what happens on these, I mean, for a decade, 2 decades probably, I've been telling my customers who a lot of times, you know, my agency customers are just small business owners. They're not very techie. I'll tell them like, I mean, I don't want to be the one to own your domain. You should own it, but I'm going to go do the process for you. Like either you give me your credit card or I sign your, like whatever it is, because they all kind of do this like since the beginning. And GoDaddy is not a horrible registrar. I don't use some of their other services, but as registrars go, they're fine.
I used to think that way, Stephanie, but now we used to say, yeah, go and use them just as but even now I've stopped because we've had some painful sessions with them.
Yeah, I mean, they're not my primary anymore, but I still have a lot of domains on them. But the point is to register anywhere, like anybody that you register a domain with, they do all this trash, right? They throw in all of this.
Just go to Cloudflare and register with Cloudflare. Nice company. And we do a Zoom with the client. If they can't, just go over to just go over to Cloudflare. They're a reputable company.
I use Cloudflare. I use Namecheap. I use a few different ones, but
they don't do all this crap. And you get benefits using Cloudflare anyway with their free account. So you might as well buy your domain through them, and you just don't get all this bullshit.
Network Solutions. Remember when Network Solutions was like the top dog?
Yeah, and it was $1,200 for a domain name or something crazy when they were at their peak. But you know what's interesting? The one differentiator, which is the only reason I still use GoDaddy for domain name hosting, is the speed with which the names will propagate. So, for example, I mean, this is unfortunately true because of their size or scale. If you do a new domain or you change something in your DNS settings with GoDaddy, it's literally within minutes. If you were on Namecheap or NameSecure, one of the other ones, it can often still take
about
hours.
Cloudflare is the fastest, though.
But isn't Cloudflare the one that almost as good?
I'm sure Cloudflare is.
Do we know who owns Network Solutions?
Now there's the registrar and then there's the DNS. So if you're using, like, I'll buy my domain maybe with GoDaddy or Namecheap or whatever, but then I put the DNS with Cloudflare immediately.
But that doesn't change the fact that what I'm saying is if you have a site and you want to assign the domain, you still have to either change who's the host of the DNS records, or you have to do an A record directly from the place you bought it, which is what I typically do. I very rarely want to put the DNS records on a local host, because then it's like one more step in the chain. But either way, the point I'm making is like Namecheap, for example. Namecheap, I found that it could take literally several hours to propagate, which when you're working with a client might not be worth the extra hassle versus like you said, I'll take care of buying your domain for you because I know
we don't do well. We have a Zoom with them and show them how to do it. We handhold them to do it.
Who has the time?
By the way, look at WooCommerce right now, because shout out to WooCommerce.
Well, I don't do it, Stephanie. One of my Jeeves people does it for me.
WooCommerce's onboarding tool has become the dark pattern onboarding tool because it doesn't even have an escape route. You have to know to ignore it and go back to the I find that really offensive, and I'm like this close to writing another 10-person plugin for the repository, because it used to be you could skip the whole thing. Now you got to get through their whole sales funnel gauntlet, and somebody thinks this is a good idea.
That plugin. Please write that plugin. Please save us from
But I'm just saying, like this is not uncommon behavior.
There's nothing stopping us forking WooCommerce. WooCommerce is a fork of Jigo, so there's nothing stopping us, forking WooCommerce. Why don't we do it? Not a problem.
The thing that's interesting about WooCommerce, unlike all other plugins, Mike Jolly and his team, extraordinary amount of talent and work on this plugin. So making accessories for it, yes, obviously I'm in the business. Forking it, I would say no, because you'd be taking on probably the most Herculean task of anything I can imagine in the WordPress space. Because when that fails, and this is quoting a Jack Arturo thing, like Jack with WP Fusion, we talked about, why doesn't WP Fusion, when you remove a tag, like unsubscribe somebody? And he says the reason is because if it goes wrong, I've just basically unhooked everybody's customers and they'll never get them back. And it's true too with WooCommerce. I don't want to be in the messing with WooCommerce behavior thing. I want to be in the take what's there and move around.
Please write that plug-in, will you? Because life is too short. For God's sake, do something else.
Anyway, Network Solutions is owned by Newfold. Just thought I'd let you know.
That means nothing to me.
There you have it. EIG.
They've just bought Yoast.
EIG. It's those people. Oh my God.
EIG renamed or
that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know, folks. To make Divi look great. So on to the next one. Oh God, another set of people. China slashes kids' gaming time to just 3 hours. What do you think China's up to, Spencer? This doesn't seem... You've got all these single men in China that can't find a nice female partner because they're one-child policy. Now they're all been taking their time up, and then the government wants to slash their gaming time. It doesn't seem the best idea, really, Spencer.
I mean, the thing you got to understand about China in general is that China is basically a future version of what would happen in America if the Republican Party was able to take over, because it's Communist Party. It's a small. Just think this through. It's a small circle of old crony men. They're not white. They're Chinese. But the point is, they are all communist party based, which is really a mockery now, because it's like saying Russia is communist. It's not. It's about a mafioso style government that is authoritarian, and they have so many people and they come from a cultural background that they were able to basically industrialize the country and turn it into their engine to do what they want. And everything from the partnerships with other countries to the way that they behave with regard to politics, with the way that the military, goes and draws lines around islands that are 250 miles off their coast and say they're ours. This is not the behavior of a country that is trying to benefit the world. It's the benefit of the people in that higher circle. And so everything they do goes through the filter. The thing that's really scary, though, is that because of the nature of how everybody is socially complying with this, I mean, there are exceptions, like we remember Tiananmen Square and everything else, like that you've got a scenario where most of the population is on the red light, green light, yellow light system, and that their neighbors can turn them in for bad behavior, and you go to yellow light, and then next step you're on red light, you can't buy a loaf of bread. You can't
you can't travel. They stop you from buying tickets. You can't get on the train until till you become yellow again.
But the problem with all of this is that all of it like leads to one end or another, right? Like there's never a scenario where you go too far and it stays there forever. It goes too far and then enough people of the masses get annoyed and have a revolution, or it goes so far that the thing implodes on itself. Getting to that point is very painful, but I do believe in the cyclical nature of how everything works, right? Like a volcano only goes until it needs to explode, and then it explodes and starts all over again. China's been around a long time, but they've not been a communist party controlled country for a long time. They're very different over their history. And I think that this is an example of how these guys who are running it are not going to live forever. The younger generation that comes up, I don't think are going to follow them into this model. Just in the same way, most of Russia is still run by a lot of cronies left over from the Cold War, including Putin. I mean, you know.
Oh, that's a whole bag itself.
But it's the same. It's the same thing. Like the United States is run by a bunch of fucking 80-year-old men, white men, and a few white women. Like, why is that 80-plus-year-olds are still running our government when the majority of people are in their 30s and 40s?
Well,
it makes no sense.
Well, you're a voter. You're a voter. You and Stephanie are voters.
That's a
sort
whole.
The amount of voting choices is like you choose what you've got available. You can't get somebody.
Yeah, but let's be first of all, America. You know, and I also will apply this to Britain. Aren't really now effective democracies. It's a delusionary setup.
Absolutely.
When it comes to Russia, I am a great studier of the history of Russian literature, and it's a very complicated country. When it comes to China, so Stephanie, when it comes to China, which is another very complicated country, which they really seem to want to build a true dystopia society. They seem to be bent in really building something here and now, which would only be recognizable in a Hollywood film about a dystopia future, don't they?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, what do you think about this? They seem. Do you think they are trying to build a true dystopia society?
Well, dystopia means something terrible. So I don't think they're trying to build something terrible. Obviously, they wouldn't. What they are trying to do is to control everything. They're trying to control. And again, I don't go down the road of politics and stuff like that, but I do know with human nature and the way people are made, you can control to a certain point, but beyond that, you have rebellion, and you either crush people or they rebel from you with a small amount that will comply. So, like Spence said, there's an eventuality for that. I don't live in that country, and so I don't have a right to speak up to that. If people live there, then that's more something that they have to deal with. I did visit once, and let me tell you, I was a rock star there because they don't get a lot of redheads, especially ones that are 5'10". I was like a giant. Ooh. And they like pale skin too. They bleach in their makeup. So I'm like as white as can be. I'm so pale. And so whatever. And I appreciated going there because every other place that you travel as an American, you get the like, ugh, gross Americans. And when I went there, people came up to me and brought their children. They didn't speak, like the adults maybe didn't speak English or just a bit. And they would have their children say their ABCs in English to me. And they were so proud. And so, I don't know, say what you will about China, but I didn't get treated that nicely when I went to Europe, so there's things you can say about both sides of all of it.
I think you're making a really great point, and I want to emphasize is that you make endless good points, Stephanie. You're a very wise woman. But I think you make a really good point here, Stephanie, that we really got to what our comments aren't about the Chinese people. They're great people. They want the same things. We're talking just about, like what Spencer said, a load of frigging old dudes who they've got some problems about. I don't know what they're. So, Andrew, what do you think the Chinese old dudes are trying to accomplish with this?
Well, I don't think it's China specifically. I think it's every single country in the world There is not a poor country in this world. And I promise you, there isn't. There are just poor people. And it's governments keeping people poor. It's governments keeping people ill-educated. And it's governments not investing in welfare, healthcare, and society.
Yeah, that's about it.
Because all governments across the world, generally, apart from New Zealand, maybe, who's got a female prime minister, and Norway, who's got a female prime minister, or whatever, you know, and stuff like that. But generally, all of our governments across the world are run by men. So that includes African countries, it includes UK. They're run by men.
Yeah, it's not that,
men,
but
I
think
they are, and men are control freaks. They are out of control at the moment because they are scared shitless of what women can achieve. Look at New Zealand, how powerful the Prime Minister in New Zealand is. Not because she's powerful, but because she's got a personality and she actually tells the truth, right? The Norwegian Prime Minister, the youngest Prime Minister in the world. No, because I'm making a point. You're not taking my point. The point is that we are allowing ourselves to be run by a hierarchy of people that have been at the top of the tree for far too long. I'm not a communist. I'm not a leftist. I'm not anything. No. But what I'm saying is we are allowing people with far too much money and far too much history. We've got a House of Lords in the UK that has 800 people in it, and that is more. They're not voted in by us, and they run our laws. That's 200 people more than are in our normal Parliament, and because they're moneyed and because they've got this title of the Lord. That is what's happening around the rest of the world. You've got these people, these 5 or 6 people that are in charge of countries, and they're ruining people's lives.
Yeah, the only reason, the thing I was disagreeing with you, and I think in some ways it was linked to a story that we discussed, just to wrap this up, folks, is linked to a story we discussed last week. The only thing I would criticise you on, Andrew, in what you've said, you look at Elizabeth Holmes. I think I think we do have a 1% that are very psychopathic in their attitudes. They live in what is being dubbed rich Gaston. They don't actually live in the world of you and me. But as Elizabeth, in my opinion, shows, I think psychopathic tendencies and attitudes can prevail in the female psyche just as much in the male. And I think you can get, I do accept that females have been excluded, but the idea, if you had, you see in Texas, many of the people, and I agree with what Spencer said strongly about Texas, I totally agree with him. But if you look at the Texas legislature, many of the most wackiest individuals that have proposed these crazy ideas in Texas, unfortunately, are females. They are females. They are part. They're
basing that on their religious views, which have been.
I don't know what. I can't say what their religious views are. I'm just pointing out a fact to you, Andrew.
That's part of that cultural. You got to understand that's part of the cultural thing as well as the political thing. At the cultural level, many of these people in America who are Republicans are far right wing. I can just say it. They're Christian-based, belief system.
I understand. I must interrupt you just for a second. I do understand why you've said that, but as a Christian, I resent you using because I don't see those people as Christians. I see them as like the Nazi Christian church in Germany.
The bottom line is
taken over.
Your point's your point is noted. I take back the gavel. The point is, whatever their belief system, it's not the golden rule in practice. They may claim it's one thing. I'm not attacking anyone's religion, but I'm saying that the person who is a woman who goes in favor of things against her own body rights is not a person who is following either the golden rule or following any kind of logic. From a political standpoint, the reason that female may do that, I'm supposing, because I'm a man, I'm in no position to say, is because in order to succeed in a system that is rigged against a female in her position, she needs to appear that way or to act that way. And I don't care what your religion is, because I'm a spiritual based person. I'm agnostic and spiritual based. I believe we're all from the same creation. But when religion is used to say this people, hold on. When religion is used to say you're right or you're right and you're wrong and you're wrong and you're damned and you're this and you're that, you're like, fuck all of you. You're retarded, because there's no possible way that 7.5 billion people are divided up into those that are correct and those are incorrect, because that would be an imperfect creation. And by your own admission, you're all supposedly perfect. So I just find it absurd as a rational person. But from a political standpoint, that's the problem we have, is that if you want to be in the Republican Party because you live in a state that's Republican, you have to be in favor of guns and against abortion. And you have to be in favor of putting women in their place, because that's the way it's set up in those particular areas. And I don't care what religion somebody is. I don't believe in religion, but I do believe that when it interferes against the Constitution, separation of church and state, that's when the rest of us have a problem. And also when it interferes with health issues, like why people with cancer can't get into the hospital right now, because these same people are proactively filling up the hospitals with themselves when they claim they couldn't get the vaccine because it violates their rights. I find all of this in the same bucket. And I'm sure there's haters, but this is a controversial topic that all of us are having to deal with right now, because the world is 2021, not 1721 or 1621. But you'd be surprised.
Have more people in your country unvaccinated than actually live in the UK. More people in your country that are unvaccinated that live in the UK. It's crazy.
Ridiculous.
It's crazy.
Right.
Hey, you guys. Hey, you guys. What does an insomniac, agnostic, dyslexic do at night?
Teaches people to clean their teeth.
Lies awake wondering if there's a dog.
Oh, I love you. I love this woman.
I'm a dyslexic. I don't do that.
Are you insomniac and agnostic?
Yeah. I am. No, not agnostic. No, I'm not. All right, but I'm very passionate about my religious beliefs, Stephanie.
And you're entitled to them.
But as an English
me too, but I'm not talking about them on
No, I don't want to inflict them on.
As long as your beliefs don't hurt me, I have no give a shit about what your belief is. More power to you.
I gave a lecture to poor Andrew a few weeks ago.
You are absolutely entitled to your views and your opinions and your beliefs, as long as they affect your life only and not mine.
I do love Andrew, and Andrew asked me a question about my religious belief, and 20 minutes later he was still listening to my lecture.
You're well informed. No, the difference is, Jonathan, is you are well informed. You are well informed about what you believe. So that's I admire that. The problem is so many Christians out there believe things are in the Bible and they're not actually in the Bible. Should I tell you what's not?
They haven't even read the Bible. I have. They haven't.
Shall I tell you what's not in the Bible? White people.
Yeah, they haven't even read the Bible. Half these crowd, they haven't even
guys,
read
I gotta go, but
we're going to wrap it up anyway.
Because this is nuts anyhow, but like I'm not leaving because of this, even though it's a little nuts.
I understand, but we're wrapping it up anyway, Stephanie. We're going to wrap up the bonus content. Thank you, the tribe.
I do love you, lunatics. But
yeah, we love you, tribe lunatics. Please tell them. Please tell about the show to your friends. It's the way that the show grows. And remember, there's even more outrageous content. I'll be making my own video about the panelists and sending it out, which will be my problem, Spencer. It will have nothing to do with you. So don't worry, Spencer. It will be my own grave I'll be digging. And please join the newsletter to watch that. It'll be
I'll be writing a disclaimer in the newsletter.
We will see you next week, folks. Bye.
See ya.
Bye.